The first, here is my take for the day, entitled Matters Arising, the Flooding Situation and the Edo-Guba Peace Accord. Yet again, our people in large numbers across the Federation have become victims of another flooding disaster. Devastating. The worst being in Maiduguri, where about 1 million people have been displaced and over 400,000 are now in IDP camps. We extend commiserations to the victims across the country, hoping and praying for a quick recovery and a quick restoration for them. On a visit to assess the extent of damage, the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, observed, and I quote him now, that Nigerians' vulnerability to flood disasters have been highlighted time and again, as witnessed during the devastating floods of 2012, 2018, and 2020. End of quote. The Vice President is right. And now we must rise up to confront those problems once and for all, so that we can spare our people this recurring ritual of death, destruction, and despair. It is worrying, however, that according to what the Arewa Consultative Forum are alleging, the Maiduguri flooding disaster was due to negligence, poor enforcement of building codes, and a lack of regulatory oversight, especially regarding the breach of the Halau Dam. Now, such acts, if actually established, ought to be punished, and public examples made of those who neglected their responsibilities. That's critical. When we hear tales of agony and stories of despair by the victims of this flood disaster, including people who have had to be subjected to living conditions that is not fitting for human beings, we all must share in the despondency. We should also begin to develop a national flooding insurance policy that will protect individuals, institutions, equipments, properties, and all kinds of valuables when we have this kind of overwhelming flooding disaster. A good thing we have had of a comprehensive federal government roadmap to address the challenges of flooding headlong, as the Vice President announced recently. Now, state governments, private sector, and all others should all rise to the occasion, especially regarding the idea of a national flooding insurance policy, and that it is done according to the best global practices, so that there can be significant help that will reduce the economic and the social impact of flooding disasters. NEMA, their state counterparts, the National Insurance Commission, alongside insurance experts and operators, must work in tandem together and make this national flooding insurance policy idea happen. The humongous extent of damage compels it. Let us not succumb to a regular ritual where we commiserate and then do nothing but wait for the next flooding disaster. Don't let's wait again. Now, in the meantime, we must commend the Nigerian military for their role, especially in the evacuation of over 20,000 people, especially in Borno, and the overall recovery efforts. Also, the federal government has announced financial and other needed resources to the states that have been affected by the flooding. Having said that, there are still reports of inadequate relief, inadequate provision of materials in some of the IDP camps, and we ask that such circumstances be urgently redressed. Once again, we share in the grief of the flooding victims across the country, and we pray for their well-being going forward. And finally, on the Edo Peace Accord stalemate, we all know the General Abdulsalami Abubakar National Peace Committee is a noble effort. But their work hit a bump this week, a few days ago, in Edo State, when the PDP, led by Governor Obaseki himself, refused to sign the peace accord for the Guba elections coming up next week. The PDP is accusing the Inspector General of Police of arresting important party members in what they say is an attempt to frustrate the PDP in the election. Now, the Inspector General of Police has come out to say that the arrests are in connection with the murder of a Nigerian police officer that happened in Benin Airport sometimes in July. Now, so as to follow due process and dispel reasonable suspicion in this matter, it is advisable that the police should charge the suspects, those who have been arrested, to court in good time, so that a judge and the court can be the one to determine the fate of the suspects, whether they should stay in detention or go on bail. Without doing that, the police will continue to run the risk of being perceived as biased in next week's elections in Edo State. Also, the National Peace Committee should take more interest in ensuring that this kind of matter is handled in accordance to the rule of law, not the rule of the police. And there you have it. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today I have another formidable Nigerian lawyer, politician, and former Attorney General. As a matter of fact, twice Attorney General of the Federation as our guest. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources Chief Kanu Agabi. Chief Agabi, you're welcome to Inside Sources, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So I wanted to open it this way to say that what kind of future, I mean, you have served at the highest level, Attorney General and also Minister for Studied Minerals, and also you also manage issues of ethics and governance. What kind of future do you think Nigeria is heading to if you look at where we are today? Where are we heading to?
Well, I am very positive about the nation. Yeah. Sometimes we speak about the nation in very disparaging terms. We describe it as corrupt. We describe it as violent. We think that matters are unpredictable. We say so. Well, to a large extent they are. But we have hope. I believe in this country. There's something happening here that has not happened elsewhere. And we have survived many tragedies.
True.
We will survive many more. We're a good nation. I regard Nigeria as a good nation. We're hardworking people. We're very intelligent. We're very resilient. We are helping to build other nations.
That's true.
I have hope for the country. I have great hope. I'm optimistic.
All right. So that's a very unique way to open the conversation. I like your spirit and your positive attitude. But like you said, there are quite a number of challenges, and the one that I consider personally to be the most compelling of our challenges, and there are quite a few, is the problem of poverty. The level of poverty among our people is actually heartbreaking. So now, and there are other problems. But I'm going to just let you take it from here. So what do you think we need to do going forward? What are the kinds of engagements that we should embark as a nation and as a government to try and, correct whatever things that you may think are fundamentally not properly aligned with that hope?
We're talking about poverty. We ought not to be poor. We are so blessed. Good people, the hardworking people, with abundant resources. Why should we be poor? But the reason many of us are having difficulties is because we are waiting to be patronized. And over the years, the government has inculcated in the people a culture of patronage. People are waiting to be patronized. The Bible says, whatever the hand finds to do, do it with all your might. There are many things that our hands find to do. We should do them. We are waiting to be patronized. Waiting to be patronized means you have to belong to the party. You have to know the president. You have to know the governor. You have to know the minister. And so people are waiting to be patronized. And in fact, they are being patronized. But you can't patronize everybody. You can't even patronize 10% of the population. So the vast majority of people, that is, those who are waiting to be patronized, become poor. So the problem of poverty is tied to this culture of patronage.
Just to follow up on your response, yeah, I do see the point that there are people, of course, who will end up poor because they didn't apply themselves, But don't you also think that there are also people who will fall into poverty just because the leadership is not doing what they ought to do, the policy comes inconsistency, they're not giving necessary direction, they're not creating opportunities?
Yes, we have a problem of leadership. There's no doubt about that. We do have a problem of leadership. As at 1960, when we became an independent nation, we can't say that we had experience for government. We're a young nation. We're still a young nation. We were experimenting with parliamentary democracy, and just after 6 years, the military stepped in. We began to experiment with military rule, and after a number of years, we entered the presidential system. So it's been one experiment after another. We really can't say that we have all the experience we need for good governance. Secondly, there was a war.
Yeah.
At the time of the outbreak of that war, the nation was already having manpower problems. The manpower problems of the nation were compounded by the war. During the war, we created 12 states out of the existing 4.
The existing 4 regions then?
Yes. And the creation of those 12 states gave rise to tremendous manpower needs. The needs that arose were met by the appointment of unqualified people. The appointment of unqualified people into high offices came with the war, came with the creation of states. We went from 12 states to 36. We have 36 states.
No.
Where originally we had 4. We have 774 local governments and area councils. Each time we multiply the manpower needs of the nation, we meet those needs by the appointment into high offices of people who are not exactly qualified. Secondly, the boundaries of the states became rigid. No matter how qualified you are, you cannot find employment in states other than your own. So this has compounded our manpower needs. This has made us very inefficient. This has given rise to leadership problems. Yes, so there is a problem of leadership. When the nation is branded as corrupt, the root of it actually is the appointment of unqualified people. Yes. If a man doesn't know that 2 + 2 is 4, and he tells you it's 5, you might think that answer is owed to corruption, whereas it's owed to ignorance. So we do have a problem of leadership. We have a problem of leadership because we have problems with the elections. We do have problems with the elections. If anybody tells you that we don't have problems with the elections, please don't believe it. The Independent National Electoral Commission is a very small institution. It is. Now, if those who go into an election go determined to rig, to manipulate the process, there is very little that INEC can do. So we have problems of leadership, we have problems of qualification of those who hold high office. We have many problems. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. So, and the whole idea of, having a conversation with people like you is to see, all right, so what kind of reforms will you advocate? And I imagine that there are quite a lot of sectoral reforms that we might talk about. But from your own perspective, based on your own experience, based on your knowledge, what are the major reforms that we ought to pursue, both as a government and as a people?
Well, let me say that the problem is not with the laws, because we are ever making new laws. We are ever amending the laws. If you look at the Constitution, between 1999 and now, we have amended the Constitution so much. We have. The problem is not with the laws. The laws are not self-enforcing. The laws need good people to enforce them. However good the laws are, they don't enforce themselves. They need good people to enforce them. So we shouldn't go on thinking that the problem is with the laws, because this question is ever recurring. What are the reforms? What are the reforms? What are the reforms? We need to reform ourselves.
That's what I said, as a nation and as a people.
Yeah, as a nation, we should correct ourselves. We should be God-fearing. We should try to do the correct things. We shouldn't be waiting to be corrected. Too many of us are waiting to be corrected. By who? It is said that dictatorship never takes root in a nation until corruption has permeated every department of it. So we reached that point. We reached the point at which the driver was corrupt, the mechanic was corrupt, the cook in the kitchen was corrupt, the steward was corrupt, the minister was corrupt, the governor was corrupt. And then dictatorship took root. So we are all implicated, and we must correct ourselves. We should. If we keep thinking that it's a matter of reforms, who is going to bear the cart? After you make the laws, who is going to implement it? The laws don't implement themselves. They need good people to implement them. And as a people, each and every one of us, must cultivate a patriotic spirit. Love the nation. Don't dismiss it as an artificial creation. We do. We dismiss the nation as an artificial creation. We despise it. We stigmatize it. We call it all sorts of names. It was put together by the British for administrative reasons. There is not a single nation on earth that is not artificial. All nations are artificial. So let us cultivate a patriotic spirit.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you actually open a very wide vista. So we can talk about the fact that we haven't seen ourselves as a nation and all of that. And I hope we can get to that. But I wanted to also ask you that. So when we talk about the reforms, and of course I said government and as a government and as a people, your response clearly talked about the fact that, as a people, we have to make up our minds to do these things right. But I want to give you an example of the kind of reforms that I am thinking about based on my own experience in the presidency for 8 years. It's my view that a presidential system of government, and you are right about the laws. I have no, I don't disagree, but there are some nuances. Now, so my view is that a presidential system allows us to have, as a leader in the government, somebody who wouldn't necessarily make himself accountable. So in the presidential system of government, you don't have to come out to engage. Nothing compels you, even in your official duties, except you are just that kind of a person to engage the people to be accountable. Compared to a parliamentary system, and I'm not stuck on the system itself, but what happens under it. Under a parliamentary system, the leader of government is the prime minister. The prime minister doesn't have the kind of cover that a president in Nigeria today has. The president can sit in Aso Rock and doesn't have to answer anybody's questions. He can leave them as open as that. At best, if he asks his aides or ministers to go and deal with them. But in the parliamentary system, the parliament is in the open. There will be at least once a week question time. Your peers, on the other hand, leader of opposition, will challenge you openly, and as a question of your official duties, you will have to respond. Okay? I think things like that can help us to nudge our leaders towards more transparency and accountability. Sir, what do you say?
Well, why did we adopt a presidential system? It was deliberate. It was not accidental. We chose a presidential system of government vesting all power in one person, because that's what the presidential system is about.
Yeah.
It is about vesting all power in one person. It is actually a dictatorship under the Constitution. It is a dictatorship. You are quite right in saying, look, the president can sit in his bedroom and dictate.
Yeah.
That's the power he has.
The guy will decide when to come to work.
Exactly. Now, why did we choose that system? We chose that system because that is the system that a nation chooses, vesting all power in one person so that he can use that power to bind the nation together.
That doesn't happen.
Yes, a nation adopts a presidential system when there are divisive tendencies in the nation, when that nation is atomistic, when there are tendencies towards division, when it is not united. So the essence of the presidential system is to vest power so that that power can be used to bind the people. Now, when it is not used, or when it is wrongly used, it then begins to divide the nation. And the question that you can ask yourself is whether in all our experience we have used all this dictatorial power to bind the nation together.
Well, for the most part, what we have seen, taking it from your comments, is that we haven't used the presidential system to create a national sense. At least we haven't used it successfully. But also, the presidential system has also been extremely expensive and continues to be expensive, even at a time when we have very dire financial constraints, when there is serious hardship in the land.
It is, and it ought not to be. Government ought not to be so big. Look, how many ministers of education do we have all over the country? How many ministries of health? How many houses of assembly? The National Assembly, the Senate. Government is so big. Government is so expensive. And government is lacking in experience, which makes it even more expensive. It is true that we're lacking in experience. To say, for instance, that our legislators don't have all the experience that they need, is not to derogate from them. It's correct. The legislature is new.
Well, nice.
The executive is also, to a large extent, new.
25 years already, sir.
Yes. The one, no, 25 years is nothing. I can tell you.
Okay.
Yes, because they come and go. If you go and investigate now, you find that many legislators are manipulated out.
Yeah, but
as soon as they gain some experience,
by their governors.
Somebody who doesn't like them throws them out. So you find a new body of legislators every time.
It's interesting.
And of course, when you look at our retired officers, nobody's using them. Who are the councillors? Who are the chairmen of council? Who are the legislators? We are not falling back on retired people.
Who have experience.
Yes, we have retired generals, retired permanent secretaries, people with a lot of experience that nobody reckons with. The nation must begin to look at using people who have some experience. But the reason nobody is using them is because we want to appoint into high offices people who can return us when the need arises.
Interesting. All right. So, because I want us to talk about, the judiciary.
Yes.
You are a senior advocate of Nigeria, two-time Attorney General. So what kind of judicial reform, do you subscribe to the idea of judicial reforms?
Look, if I were to put the question to you,
yes,
because if you think that there should be judicial reforms, you must know what kind of reforms you have in mind.
Yes.
Look, we have everything in place. Our procedures are right. Our procedures conform with the procedures of other nations. The laws we are implementing are the same laws that other nations are implementing. Everything is right. But the problem is that our courts are congested. We keep talking of reforming the judiciary. We keep attacking the judges. We stigmatize them. We abuse them. We insult them. But the truth is this, and I can tell you this. I've been a lawyer for 52 years.
Wow.
And I work in the courts. So I know the judges. I can tell you that we have very good judges. That doesn't mean that every judge is perfect. It doesn't mean that the judiciary is perfect. The judiciary is not perfect, but it is the best arm of government. The judiciary is better than the legislature, and it is better than the executive.
Why do you say so?
It is correct, because I work there. I've been in the executive. I was a senator.
Right.
Yes, the judiciary is the best arm of government. The problem is this, and people don't know this. The judges work so hard. Do you know anybody who works harder than the judges? Do you go to court?
Really?
Well, go to court and see. On a judge's list, maybe 30, 40 cases a day. How can he cope? How can he do 30 or 40 cases a day? How can he? Not just the judges, even the law enforcement institutions, they are overworked. They are founded on the premise that the work that they will have to do will be limited. If it becomes unlimited, they cannot cope. And as long as they go on struggling with that system, they become indifferent. I mean, if you were a policeman standing on the road and trying to regulate the traffic, day in, day out, night and day, week after week, month after month, and they are not obeying, you become hardened.
True.
That's why sometimes you see the police do what they do. They have become hardened. They have become indifferent.
Especially because they're not even well paid.
Yes, they're overwhelmed. And you can say that the judges are not well paid. What are they paid? But no matter what they are paid, if they are overwhelmed, they cannot cope. The problem of the judiciary arises from the fact that the judges are overworked. The problem of the judiciary arises from the fact that from the streets, we are not controlling ourselves. These matters end up in court. So we must, the most I can say is appoint more magistrates, appoint more judges, increase the jurisdiction of the magistrates, appoint more judges. I don't want to say set up more prisons. Are we going to turn the nation into one vast prison? Are we going to have courts on every street? We must control ourselves. We are not controlling ourselves. You know, it's very easy to control other people or to criticize and condemn other people. But as a nation, we must begin to control ourselves.
Well, you know, I mean, so you subscribe to the idea that the judiciary is congested, and an important reform will be to resolve the congestion in the courts.
Yes, by correcting ourselves. By correcting ourselves so that we don't have too many cases going into the courts. Take the elections, for instance.
Okay.
Do you know what percentage of elections are challenged?
Yeah, pretty high.
Very, very high. Why? Because the elections come under justifiable suspicion. They do. Those who suspect the elections are justified. But if we reach a point at which the elections are not open to the kind of criticism or suspicion to which they have been subjected, then of course
you can free up the...
Yes, you will free up the courts.
Yeah, but you see, I mean, Chief, I really appreciate your perspective However, I think it's important that we also invest time in the specific things that has to happen, because just like you said, somebody has to bear the cat. Something has to be done to recalibrate.
I can give you an example. Education. We have to give ourselves the right education. We're not giving ourselves the right education, are we? The education we give to our young does not equip them for life. It makes them proud. It makes them distant from the community. It doesn't make them self-reliant. Yes, and it doesn't engage them. So we are turning out a large body of people, taking them out of the farms, taking them out of the community, putting them in school, giving them an education that is not very useful. So at the end of the day, you have this body of people going about looking for work. We all want to be in the House of Assembly. We want to be in the Council. We want to be in the Senate. We want to be in the House of Reps. Why? On account of the kind of education that we have. We have a superiority complex. We feel that by virtue of the education that we have, we ought not to go to the farms. And it started during the war, when people were called from their farms and made civil servants. So when you keep saying the reforms, these are the reforms. Give the people the right education.
Okay, all right. So that takes care of the judiciary. Now, although there's also a view that there's quite a bit of corruption in the judiciary.
Yes, you can't have a perfect judiciary. There's a bit of corruption everywhere.
And when there's corruption,
I can tell you that there's a bit of corruption everywhere.
But the judiciary,
you go to schools, there are teachers who are not qualified. You go to the universities, there are professors who are not qualified. Go to the hospitals, there are doctors who are not qualified. Those who go to hospital will tell you what they have suffered in the hands of doctors. Are you going to say that we should close the hospitals?
No.
No. There are a few judges who are making mistakes. Of course, as they say, the poison of the part is the poison of the whole. If when I came here, one of your staff assaulted me, I would say China's television. Whereas it's just one person did that. So we shouldn't brand. We are not going to improve the judiciary by words of condemnation.
I agree.
We must begin to employ words of commendation.
But well, okay. So generally, I want us to interrogate that. I agree with you that generally, there's no point having a condemnation that is not redemptive. I think what is useful is to have some redemptive criticism.
Yes.
Because, if you say condemnation here and then commendation, well, if things are not working well, don't commend because it's not working well. Don't commend, otherwise it serves no purpose. So the question is that what kind of redemptive commendation should we...
let me give you an example of unredemptive condemnation. For instance, the law is what the judges say it is. The law is not what you say it is. The law is not what I say it is.
Yeah, because that's their responsibility.
Yes, the law is what the judges say it is. And that is what makes for certainty. Now, when they pronounce on the law, and we don't agree with it, and we attribute to them all sorts of false motives, that's not right.
Do you think that we should have a situation where we should have people going to the Supreme Court without necessarily being a judge?
I agree with that. You can. I mean, why not? I've never been a judge. If you appointed me to the Supreme Court, I'll be very happy, even though I'm very old now. I can't go there. But there are many lawyers who can competently serve on the Supreme Court bench. Yes, who can serve in the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, but the judges, the Chief Justices that we've had, they have resisted that actively, including the last Chief Justice, Justice Ariwola. They actually resisted it.
Well, I mean, they must have good reasons for doing so. But I'm giving you my perspective. I believe that the judges were themselves lawyers. They became judges. I'm a lawyer. If I were not of this age, I would gladly be a judge. So it will be resisted, and we have to convince them.
Very, 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 very good. And let's move away from the judicial, because there are quite a lot of issues that we want to benefit from you being an elder statesman. Now, I have observed that you are not very. Your view about reforms are quite unique, which I find a very good perspective. But in terms of our politics, okay. Now, I think you've made the point, or you implied it, in our informal discussion, that look, the democracy itself is connected to the politics. So we have a situation today in the country where the political parties don't represent democratic norms. I think when you are talking about the fact that democracy is becoming, we are getting to a point that everybody is corrupt and it's becoming a dictatorship. Is it part of the problem, in your view, that the way the political parties are being managed is a factor in what seems to be the stunted growth of our democracy today?
Yes, you see, we have a misconception of politics. We have a misconception of democracy. As at 1999, when we instituted civil rule, the pendulum moved from one extreme of dictatorship. We were a dictatorship. It moved to the other extreme of liberalism. People felt that we are now free. We can do what we like. That is our misconception of politics. That is our misconception of democracy. We believe that in politics, good and bad are equal. They are not. We believe that the end justifies the means. If you can get away with it, you can take it illicitly now and negotiate later. That is it. The political parties are not democratic institutions. They don't comply with their own rules.
I think so. I think they are not, yeah.
They make peace and compromise. So as long as that is happening at the party level, what do you expect? The end product will be precisely the kind of problems that we're now having. Primaries are rigged at the party level. Are they not?
Oh, yes.
They are. Everybody knows.
The exceptions are when they are not rigged.
Okay. So when you do that, I mean, giving it a spiritual dimension, forgive me, but giving it a spiritual dimension.
Yes.
When you have stolen the office that you are holding, do you expect God to partner with you in it?
No.
Can you pray over that office?
No.
Can you?
No.
You can't.
Except there is a redemption.
Can you use it to do any good? You can't.
No, you can't.
So that's the problem. St. Paul said, I am an apostle of Jesus Christ by the grace of God. Whatever office you hold, you must be able to say the same thing. You must be able to say, I am a governor by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I am a senator by the grace of God. If you can't say that, your prayer in calling upon the Lord to join you in that office is an abomination.
Wow, that's a very strong point.
No, but it is.
But you're right, and I agree with you. And that's why I'm trying to
So reform the parties.
Try to find some kind of. So how do we fix all of this?
Time.
Time.
You need time. It cannot be done overnight. I can tell you this.
Are we moving towards it?
Well, with time, why not? If you remember the incident involving the Jews in the wilderness, the Lord himself said, you have a slave mentality. Those of you who came out of Egypt. And you can't enter the promised land with this mentality.
Right.
Therefore, you will wander here for 40 years until each and every one of you dies. So
I hope that's not the judgment of Nigeria.
No, it's not a judgment of the country.
No, I'm just saying,
the truth is this.
Yeah.
We have a false mentality. Again, taking an instance from the Bible, Moses said to the Jews, he said, look, you are coming from Egypt. Your leaders are not to take you back there. Whether it is for love of more wives or more horses or more houses, you are not to go back that way. We are coming from colonialism, but our leaders are taking us back for love of more houses or more horses or more wives, more money. Money is everything, and life is nothing. That's where we are.
Sad.
Yes. Do you know anybody who is happy?
Well, we have to make ourselves happy even in the circumstances.
Yes.
So moving along. So Chief Hanyanku is the chair of the Patriots Club, been known for quite a while, and recently they met President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and came up with the idea of, hey, look, let's have a constituent assembly, that we develop a new constitution, and let that draft constitution be subjected to a referendum where people can vote up or down. What do you think about that?
Well, I am a member of the Patriots. And this question that you have asked me embarrasses me, because I'm a member of the Patriots. I was in the delegation that went to see
the president.
And I have to ask the Patriots to forgive me for the answer that I am going to give you now. Well, as a body, the Patriots are entitled to that view.
Yeah.
As an individual, I believe that we have a constitution. We cannot proceed on the premise that we don't have a constitution. If you proceed on the premise that we don't have a constitution, the presidency becomes illegitimate, National Assembly becomes illegitimate, the states become illegitimate, the nation falls into anarchy immediately, because we all derive our offices
from the
Constitution. So we have a constitution. It may not be good enough. It provides a mechanism for its own correction. We should correct it. You cannot give this nation a new constitution without following the existing constitution. You can substitute it, but you must acknowledge that. Okay, we approached the president and we said, look, help us to have a new constitution, which we can submit to a referendum. By what power can he do that if his own office is illegitimate?
Permit me to interrupt here, just so you can address it in a broader sense that I want to present. So for me, the question is not to abolish the constitution. The question is not to remove the fact that the military are in our politics and our history. The question is, for instance, wouldn't it be a good thing to have a constitution that Nigerians can vote on through a referendum? So that we can really say, we the people.
You can do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But you have to pass through this existing constitution. This is the road that leads to we the people. This is the road. There is no other way. There is no other way.
And the road is?
It passes through the existing constitution.
Okay. Which is?
You have to go, which is the 1999 constitution, as amended.
So what in your view, where are the stop points on that road?
No. If you
what has to happen?
At the constitution, it makes provision for its own amendment. You can substitute it by using the constitution. You can amend it in order to give the National Assembly power to substitute it.
So it's doable.
It is doable, but You must pass through the existing constitution. That's the point.
Okay.
You must pass through the existing constitution. There's no other way. Let me ask you again and again. How do you approach the National Assembly if you don't recognize them? How do you approach the president if you don't recognize him?
Well, I don't think anybody is saying. Or
if you say that the present constitution is illegitimate,
okay,
you answer.
That's what you're saying.
Is the present constitution illegitimate?
No, I don't think it is illegitimate.
Oh, okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I had this. By the way, I had this discussion with some of your. I think somebody became Attorney General after you in office, and he said to me that if I say the constitution is illegitimate, that means my service in 8 years is illegitimate because it was correct. So I understand that. But I think the useful thing that will help us in building a nation where people can have a sense of belonging is for the people to do. I mean, I like the idea of the referendum when people can say that, okay, we are going out today to vote up or down on this.
I agree. But I'm saying that you have to pass through the existing constitution.
So what would that take, sir? What would that take?
No, it will take the National Assembly amending the constitution and giving them power to do this.
Okay. And you believe
it has to be a process of law.
And you believe that it can be done, don't you?
It can be done.
Okay.
It can be done, but the mechanism is the constitution, the existing constitution
is
itself.
The mechanism. Okay.
It provides for its own correction.
Okay.
It provides for its own substitution.
All right. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. So as we are wrapping up, I wanted to also ask you, what's your view about the state of the nation? So we have a new president, well, not as new anymore. I think about 14 or 15 months in office now, dealing with some of the issues clearly that have been there even before him. So I'm not one to blame him entirely. But of course, now the buck stops at his desk. How will you assess the current president's job so far?
If you send an angel of God to rule this nation and we don't cooperate with him, he's going to fail. We must cooperate with the president. He is the president. We must cooperate with him. If we cooperate with him, he will succeed. If we don't cooperate with him, he will fail.
Do you think it's
we should be positive. We must be positive.
And I agree with those sentiments,
yes.
Chief, entirely. But in terms of the direction that you have seen today, what would be your counsel? Is it the counsel of keep going?
He should consult the people. The nation must unite. We are divided. I told you a moment ago that you can't find employment in states other than your own. Is that a united nation?
No.
No? Why? Why can't a person from a Ebonyi state get employment in Enugu state? Why can't somebody from Cross River find employment in Benue? Do you say that is one nation? The boundaries of the states are rigid. We're divided. And while being divided, we're expecting the successes that come from being united.
Okay, very well. I mean, Chief, I agree with you entirely. But let's take it to another angle. Now, so there was this End Bad Governance protest last month, and of course, there's been a lot of stuff. Some people are in court. Some people say that is the government against dissent? What's your view about the protest and the way the administration has managed it?
Yes, the people are entitled to protest. They are. That is why in the Constitution, the opposition is instituted. The opposition is instituted by the Constitution. Today, the opposition has been assimilated.
Entirely asleep?
Yes, they have been assimilated. They're part of the system. Nobody's opposing anything. And this has gone on for a long time. So it even compounds the problem of the dictatorship.
So in your view, how did we get there? Because that's not the problem of...
We got there because we are greedy. Because we want to reap where we never sowed. We want to amass wealth. One of the legends associated with the building of the Tower of Babel is that, at that time...
Yeah. Everybody was...
Wealth was everything, power was everything, and life was nothing. The Babylonians, they mourned when the bricks they were using to build that temple broke. But it didn't matter to them if the builders died. That's where Nigeria is. Wealth is everything. Power is everything. Life is nothing. We must agree that it is so. We have to do something about it. We must correct ourselves. I expect each and every one of us to correct himself or herself.
That is not like...
If we do, there will be a limit to the harm that Tinubu can do, if he can do any harm.
Chief,
yes?
Let's interrogate that very quickly. I don't think that, and you are unheard, please correct me on this. I don't think that it is possible for people to self-correct, because by nature, we test the limits. So I get a car, I get on the road, I'm speeding. I love the car, this car is great, it's good. It is the speed limit that tells me you can't go this far. And I know that if I'm caught, I'm going to get a ticket. So because of the fear of that ticket, I motivate myself. So sir, the idea of people correcting themselves is very laudable.
That is why I told you.
It's not going to happen, sir.
No, but that's why I told you that the machinery is overwhelmed. There's a single policeman standing there to regulate traffic. We come and pass, 100 vehicles. What can he do? We must correct ourselves. If we don't, of course, the leadership should.
And don't you think that it should start with the leadership?
It should. And that is why we must take whatever trouble is entailed to elect the leadership that we can control.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Final question, insecurity and the problem of the economy. How do you feel, I mean, being somebody of your age, experience in government and outside government, about the recurring insecurity in the country? And then what will you recommend to government that they can do to ameliorate the hardship in the land?
Self-reliance. We must have a self-reliant nation. We must shut the borders. We must produce by ourselves the things that we need. We must encourage Nigerians who have monies abroad to bring it back. You see, today we put the emphasis on corruption. And all these institutions fighting corruption, they have instilled fear in the people. People are afraid. People are buying dollars and keeping it in their houses. They are taking their monies and keeping it abroad. These things are compounding the problems of the nation. So we must fight corruption in such a way that we don't destroy the nation in the process. Yes, look, Nigerians are not using the banks. Why? They are afraid of EFCC. They are afraid of ICPC. They are afraid of NFIU. They are afraid of SSS. So we must find a way of fighting corruption. They say it is the sick blood that transports the drug. We are overwhelmed by corruption. We must find a way of using it to move forward.
Yeah, so don't you think that people should be afraid of the law enforcement agencies?
They should. But the law enforcement agents, what about colonialism? What was colonialism? Was that not corruption? What about slavery? Was that not corruption? What about feudalism? Was that not corruption?
Yes.
All that was corruption. But those nations, is it not corruption when the nations of the world allow you to take your own money and keep it there and lend it back to you? We must find a way of resolving that. I'm not advocating corruption, no. But since we have that problem, we must find a solution. We have hundreds of billions of dollars abroad. Bring it back. Bring it back by all means.
By all means, okay.
If you were in power, wouldn't you bring it back?
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Final question on the insecurity. Are you embarrassed with the problem of recurrent insecurity in the country? What's your view?
Look, it is tied to the pervasiveness of corruption. We are not self-reliant. We are not using our hands. We are not given the right kind of education. We are deculturalized. We have destroyed our villages as cultural institutions. Everybody is in the city doing nothing. We all want to be employed in the service. These are the problems.
How does that affect the problem of banditry? Problem of
why not? Because look, they are not employed. They are hungry. They are homeless. they have no hope, their minds will be brutalized. They will become inhuman.
What's the role of the law enforcement agencies?
The law enforcement agencies cannot cope because they are overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed.
So what should government do?
Government should, I keep repeating it, we must make the nation self-reliant. We must give the right kind of education.
Specifically for the security.
Please, I beg you.
All right, sir.
These are the reasons why we have insecurity.
Those are the long-term
do you have children?
Yes.
Do you educate them?
Yes, sir.
If you don't, do you expect them not to be lawless?
Yeah, but I see your point, sir, and I don't disagree. My point is
that's the problem. We must educate the nation. If you don't, we must have the right elections.
My view, sir.
If you don't have the right elections and you think that nevertheless there will be security, there will be no security, because in the process of rigging the election, you deculturize the people. You institute a culture of immorality. The young people who help you to rig it will themselves be learning from it.
All right.
Because you are thinking that there is a ready-made solution that we can begin to apply. No, there is no ready-made solution. The shortcut eventually turns out to be the longest route. We must start.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Chief Ganu Kanuhabi, for your very, very unique perspective and your elderly wisdom.
Well, forgive me if I said the wrong things.
No,
nobody likes to talk about these things.
No. I think you quite you have enriched the conversation by your perspectives, clearly, and I'm grateful for that. And I think it advances the cause of good governance and our cause as a people. Many of the things that you said addresses the people, and it's very, very useful. Once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you very, very much. I'm highly honored. Right, thank you. I'm grateful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And that's another edition of Inside Sources. Like we say, we are here because we believe that Nigeria will prevail. Hashtag Nigeria will prevail. And we will not relent. Just like Chief said, the awareness and the education. We are starting and we are trusting that all will be well with our country. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Laulu Akonde, and I'll see you at the next edition.